All right, good evening to everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you all for coming out and taking time out of your evening to join this community town hall forum and discussion on a Thursday evening at 6 o'clock. You could be a whole lot of other places, including around your dinner table and everywhere else. So I'm glad you chose to be here with us for this conversation and discussion. Sorry for getting started a little bit late, but we wanted to rearrange the room a little bit to make this more of a conversation, sort of a family discussion. Not sort of sitting out where I'm just kind of speaking out to you all, but I thought this circle might make it a bit more inclusive and give it more of an intimate feel so that we might have a conversation. And that's our goal tonight, is just to have a conversation. Me, the board, share with you what really you share with us, and hear from you some of your concerns, your celebrations, as well as, again, any concerns or thoughts that you might have. We are really focused on speaking about 3 areas in particular in tonight's conversation. One is about main focus being our capital improvement plan, and by that I'm referring to our effort to upgrade and modernize our facilities throughout the county and the school district. The second, we'll talk a little bit about our status designated by the state as a low-performing district, and the 5 schools that we have that have been designated by the state as low-performing. We'll talk a little bit about that and where that effort is headed and is going. And then the last, much of the work of what we're seeing around the state and the country involving discipline and what we're seeing in our students, most of them, a lot of them being impacted by social emotional trauma and that sort of thing, and how that is impacting our schools here in Warren County, particularly here at the high school, and the result of that being increased fighting and aggression and that sort of thing, and how you all might be able to help us with that. So those are the 3 topics that we will talk about tonight. Before we get started, is there anything else on anybody's mind that you might want to discuss other than those things? I think that's probably a healthy enough discussion for one night. All right? Seeing none, and I take it that's an agreement on our agenda?
Yes.
All right, thank you for that. And again, we want to keep this informal, so we don't have any screens, we don't have a printed agenda, we're not voting on anything, we're not taking any motions. Again, this is just a conversation, a town hall conversation. So I'm going to start with, again, our capital improvement plan. And again, as I mentioned, I refer to it as that because we're talking about capital projects, that being our infrastructure. These are our buildings. When we refer to capital, we're talking about things like buildings, furniture and fixtures in those buildings, things such as security cameras from your desks, your tables, chairs. All of those things are part of what we call a capital expenditures. We generally have 2 budgets in general. An operational budget that pays salaries, takes care of programs and things of that nature, and then you have a capital budget. None of this money, either on the capital side or operational side, the school system or school district raises itself. In North Carolina, most of you may know, for those that do not, school boards are not taxing authorities, meaning we don't raise any of our income. We don't have the ability to levy sales tax. We don't have the ability to levy property taxes, which is how local governments raise funds. All of our money is allocated to us through 3 entities. Anybody know who those 3 are?
Federal, state, local.
There you go. So we get money from the federal government, state government, local government. All of that is appropriated to us. Your local government, so our county commissioners, have the ability to raise taxes. Their revenue comes from both mainly property taxes, sales taxes, They do some fines, forfeitures, and fees, everything from parking fees and other things like that. Court fees, those come to the county. School districts get some of that money, but most of ours comes from the state. The rest comes from the county. I would say about, Sierra helped me, probably 75, 80% of our budget comes from the state. Out of a $35, $40 million budget, about 25 to 30 is state, about 5 million comes from local. The federal amount varies from year to year. It's higher these last couple of years because we've received the pandemic recovery money, but in general, that's also about, I would say, 5 to 10% of our budget, but the majority of it comes from the state. I share all that to say that when it comes to capital money, all of that responsibility is on whom? It's on local. So your county commissioners are responsible for building projects, both maintenance. Well, we have some money in operations for maintenance and upkeep, but when it comes to renovations and new construction, that is all on your county commissioners. Now, that has changed in recent years, and there is money that comes into the state now from a very large and familiar pot of money. Anybody know what that is?
North Carolina Education Lottery.
The lottery, exactly. The lottery now provides quite a bit of money to the state, and that trickles down to school systems like ours to help us with those capital improvements, again, those renovations and new construction. We were fortunate enough to apply for a grant earlier in the year, and we were fortunate enough to receive $30 million from the state, all through what is called the Needs-Based Capital Building Fund, to help us with the construction of a new school. Now, we chose to look at that as a source of revenue because we know that from a financial standpoint, two things really don't make sense. We have about 8 buildings, if you include South Warren, that was closed a couple years ago, and that was closed for what? I'm testing your local knowledge. Why was South Warren closed?
Facilities issue, I can tell you as principal.
So we had an HVAC system that went out, and it cost anywhere from about, estimates were $300,000 to $500,000 to repair that. That building was closed. We have now 7 other buildings that are all aging facilities as well. Many of those we struggle, and some of you have students in those buildings, and we struggle with leaky roofs, boiler systems that go in and out, our HVAC systems are in and out. We all see, other than maybe those that are in New Tech and at the early college, struggle with aging infrastructure. That is a challenge, and to continue to pour money into that is just not financially sound. Most of these buildings are 30 years or more in age, and as we do that, we're hitting the point of what I would call a black hole, or sort of no return, because we're just pouring money in a sort of perpetual black hole. So at some point, we have to look at how do we modernize and upgrade these buildings. If we were to go and replace and build 7 new schools where those schools are, who will pay for that?
Local.
Our local, the county commissioners. And how do the county commissioners raise money?
Property taxes.
And along with that, if they don't use the taxes or a sales tax or property tax, they also have a third option, levy a bond. And when they do that, then what happens? To your pocket. They gotta raise taxes, so your taxes go up. So everybody that lives in Warren County, you end up paying that bill because your taxes go up. We just had one of our county commissioners come in, so he will attest to you that there is no appetite for our county commissioners to raise taxes here in Warren County. I'm sure we all don't have any appetite to pay additional taxes to raise money. So from a financial standpoint, it is not financially prudent for us to try to go and raise the kind of money that would be needed to replace 6 to 7 brand new buildings. Especially when we have the option of this grant program where we just got $30 million for it. And guess what? It's a grant, which means what?
We don't have to pay it back.
We don't have to pay that money back. Not 1 cent of it. That is a grant in the truest form. The only thing that we have had to pay, and again, we thank our partners with the county commission, we had to do a 5% match on that $30 million. Doing the math, we got $30 million and we have to pay what? 5%, which is 1.5 million. You tell me where you get a better deal than that. Then you get 30 million for I give you 1.5 million, you give me back 30 million. Anybody got a better deal than that? Now, that is the first step. We have in mind a 3-phase project that would start with a new elementary school, then a new middle school, and a new high school. If we're fortunate and we're able to get grants for all of those, then again, that is paid for by the state through lottery funds. We don't have to pay any of that back. So I'm going to ask, can you all see now where I'm going with this? Yes? No?
Yeah.
I have a question.
We could try and get, go ahead.
Where were community members and parents
Wait 1 second.
not
He's on the mic.
across? Oh,
So that everybody can hear.
Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My question is, why weren't community members not convened to talk about this plan before the board made the decision to go forth with this plan?
I think that's part of what I'm trying to share with you in that the financial piece really drove that decision. We didn't really have very many options in terms of being able to, when you look at trying to find a way to finance any sort of renovation or new construction, you've got on a couple things. Again, either raising taxes by floating a bond. We don't have the revenue enough in terms of property taxes to fund that kind of project. So we're very limited. We were very limited in terms of being able to finance a complete renovation of all of our schools. And so that is then leading to or driving the decision to consolidate campuses and try to get to 3 campuses as opposed to 7. When you look at, again, revenue and financing and how you would be able to fund that. And then second, looking at the aging infrastructure and how fiscally sound it is to continue to pour money into aging buildings.
right, I understand that, but my question is, why weren't community people and parents engaged in these discussions
6 months ago, 7 months ago, when the decision was being made? Did you feel that it was only the board and the superintendent and the lottery people? I mean, where did the idea come from for this plan? And I guess the other part of that question is, what research did you all draw upon to say that consolidating an elementary school is a useful and effective thing for a rural community, a rural school community? I mean, where does the data, I mean, what are the benefits? What are the expected outcomes for kids? We already know that for every hour kids are on the bus, they lose 2.6 points in terms of their achievement. We have kids coming from Drury, we have kids coming from South Warren, Afton, from Vaughan. Where did that fit in making this decision? The research, what told you to do that? What intelligence?
What's telling us to do that, again, is the fact that we don't have any options when it comes to financing that. I would love, the board would love to be able to build an elementary school in each corner of the county, in all the districts, and allow every student to have as short a bus ride as possible. That would improve bus efficiency and everything else. What I'm saying is we don't have the resources as a county to be able to do that. So I don't have any research in terms of, well, what's the academic benefit, because the decision was not driven by academics, and from an academic standpoint, what is in the best interest of students. If we could make that decision, and if that were an option, I can promise you that we would have that research and present that to you. But there's no need for me to present that as an option to you if you say yes, and then I don't have the resources and then follow through on that promise. What I'm saying is, it is purely a financial decision that was driving the decision to consolidate campuses. Because we don't have another option from a financial standpoint to consider. If we did, we certainly would consider it, but we're not a Wake County or Charlotte, Mecklenburg, or what have you, where you can go through a process, and I've been through that process, where we have the luxury of having community meetings, putting a map out, determining where the best land is, going out and then purchasing that land, and then turn around and pay for a building to go on top of it. That is, I can tell you by experience, that is a hefty proposition, and one that this county, unfortunately, is not in a position to fund.
So are you saying that the public didn't deserve to know anything about this based on how the money is coming to Warren County?
I'm not saying that at all.
What do you think? I mean,
Is that what you all are hearing? You say that you didn't deserve? I'm not.
Jerry asked the question, why wasn't there a community discussion about the idea of you all even doing this? What you were telling her is about dollars. This is about community being engaged before, even if this was a thought, we should have known. That's what she's saying.
I hear what she's saying, but I think if I, the board, or if we came to you and said, hey, let's have a conversation and let's talk about these options. In my view, that would be very disingenuous on my part, knowing that I can't fund, or we can't find a way to fund those other options. So I'm not saying that you didn't deserve that conversation or discussion, but that would be totally dishonest on my part to come and say, well, let's have a conversation about these options, knowing that these aren't realistic or valid options.
Now, I don't want to be disrespectful, but let me just say this. These schools, now I don't know what this means to you guys, I really don't. But these schools mean something to us. And for you all to sit here and tell us to our faces that you made this decision about our schools, about some dollars. Our children been in these schools, and they are not the cleanest, and they are not the best landscape, nothing like what we had. But you telling me that I don't even need to know the conversations he's been at the table? I mean, what is that? I don't deserve that knowledge. I don't need, what you talking about? I mean, Northside means something to me. I'm sorry. And it really does. You know, it was one of the first black schools in Warren County. It might not mean nothing to you, and whoever you are. It means something to me. And for you to sit here and say, I don't need to be at the table for this discussion, is insulting. It's very insulting.
So with all disrespect, again, I would say that's not what I said, that you didn't deserve to be at the table or deserve to be part of the discussion. Yes, ma'am.
And I absolutely understand what you talked about. I attended Marion Boyd. My son attended Marion Boyd. My daughter is currently at Marion Boyd. So I understand what these neighborhood schools mean to all of us, but then also being on the Board of Commissioners and understanding it is that dollars and cents when you look at the aging building. I want my child to have more than what I experienced. You know what I'm saying? And the population, unfortunately, the communication could have been, done sooner to tell, to have the engagement, I think, to say, okay, we're losing students, but we've known that for a period of time now. And we know that it costs more to fix these aging buildings. So it's like, at what point do we say we no longer can fix these buildings and we have to think of a different alternative? Could it have been presented to the public that way? Yeah, and maybe it's, okay, let's find another use for these buildings. The same thing with South Warren. It's like, okay, South Warren has been decommissioned and it's sitting there. Maybe those conversations could be had. But, and just looking at it, not only just as a parent, but also as a commissioner, at the end of the day, it is coming down to dollars and cents. How much do we continue to put into these aging buildings before we realize that it becomes more cost effective to put it into a new structure? But I absolutely understand the significance of those neighborhood schools and that we're losing that now with our elementary. It makes a difference, but
Let me say this, and it is one that's driven about dollars and cents. I understand community schools, I understand neighborhoods, I understand the importance of and the value of Northside. I didn't attend Northside, but I get it and I understand. But I can also tell you, and County Commissioner is right, could we have come to the community sooner? Absolutely. Could we have had this conversation sooner? Absolutely. I'll take that one, blame that on me. Blame that on me. But I will say this to you. Coming from Wake County, where I came from, and traveling the state, as I did when I ran for state superintendent, I can tell you that there are thousands and thousands of kids around this community, around this state, that attend school in world-class schools. There is no way a school in Wake County would have ever closed because we didn't have $300,000 to replace an HVAC system. That would have never happened. I've seen schools, 2-story, 3-story schools with elevators and the whole 9 yards. And while I may not be from this community, you can't tell me that students and children in Warren County don't deserve to go to a school that looks the same way in Wake County, the same way in Charlotte, and other places. Our children here do not deserve any less or deserve to be in any, we've got principals, our assistant principal here is from Alamance Burlington, and you all have been other places. Those schools don't look like this. And our students don't deserve to be in schools, as you just said, that are dirty, not clean, leaky roofs, ceiling tiles that are soiled, insulation showing from the roof in the classroom. Our kids don't deserve that.
I have a question.
I think I was over here first and then I'll come back.
Good evening, everybody. I just want to, piggyback off of the young lady over there. I don't think the issue is necessarily the finances. It's the communication. I don't care how big or shiny the school is if the children are not learning. Okay, we have an F rating at the middle school. My son is at the middle school. I am a proud graduate of the class of '93 from this building. I came up from Northside because I walked from the Pines because I stayed in the projects. I went to Warren County North Warren, where I knew that my behavior would get my butt whooped at school, and then when I got home. For the past 2 weeks, every time my son comes home, he tells me that it was a fight on the bus, it was a fight in the gym. And we went to the first meeting that they had, that Dr. Carrington had at the middle school. There were 5 groups of parents. Out of 341 students, only 5 sets of parents showed up. And I was floored when he said we had a score of an F. I just can't even put into words how disappointed I am because we don't have the proper turnout. We have the ability. We have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have Instagram, we have Warren Record, WRAL. They don't even post our high school football games on Friday night football. The immense amount of people who showed up for this weekend that we just had to celebrate Warren County schools, you're not going to tell me that there is no way we can't make this happen, but we have to communicate as a county, and we're not doing that. What we're doing and what we've been doing since days of long is shipping our money, our resources to other counties. We can have a bar on every corner of Main Street, but we can't bring a Walmart to the area because all of our dollars are going somewhere else. Make it make sense for me, because I have to figure out what I'm going to do with my son because he's smart. But it's because we push him. He was the only one that passed his EOGs when we were going through COVID. That hurts my heart because we have smart kids here. But we have to figure out if we're going to be here for the students or if we're going to be here for shiny buildings.
So your point is well taken. And I'm not saying shiny buildings is an end goal. Well, because it is getting schools out of the low performing status, seeing all students perform successfully. That's the goal. Now, to help make that make sense, part of the aim on how we get there starts with having adequate learning facilities. Making sure that we're having and we're hiring qualified teachers and staff. Folks that know how to teach and put something in their head. I agree with you. Give me 10 teachers who can teach and move students, and I put them out here in this holy trailer all day long, then take a shiny building and 10 teachers or principals who can't teach or can't lead. I'll take the 10 that can work any day.
But even at this point, we got a school building that's sitting over right now that's closed, that we don't have a soul in. I understand what you're saying about the renovations, putting money into something that's already, I get that. But while we're trying to maneuver this, our focus still needs to be on the kids. My son should not have to be worried about the bus driver having to slam on brakes because some boys are fighting in the back.
That's right, tell it.
We have that, we need to, I know we have things that we have to do, and I do realize that we have to move forward. But I am still concerned right now about the safety of the kids, and that there are we need tutoring programs right now. We don't need to wait until we have them take their test, and we already know they're failing. We already got the bad report card. And I mean, it's just the resources that we do have that are available to us. It's just communication. I feel just like you do. The only reason I knew about this is because somebody told me about the radio station broadcast. That's the only reason I knew about this meeting. But it's just, it hurts because I'm a product of Warren County.
I mean, in terms of your comment, too, students are leaving and families are leaving because of all these things. Poor facilities.
No.
No?
That ain't right. It's not
You don't think
true.
so?
No.
It's because
I
of
mean,
communication.
Yes, that's right. Lack of participation between school and community. It ain't got nothing to do with
It
no.
doesn't have to do with the facility.
take the question.
And
Okay.
We have a
this
question.
lady has a.
Give us a second.
Order, please, we
Yes, sir.
appreciate it.
Go ahead.
I have two questions. One, you said consolidating 7 schools after saying that Warren County Early College and New Tech were the newest buildings. So are you including them in the consolidating of those, the only schools in the county that got a B and a C grade? Are you saying that you're going to take those programs away, make one central high school and do away with those when they're clearly working for the county? And my second point was I totally understand the buildings, et cetera. I'm a Warren County native, went to Warren County schools, couldn't wait to get out myself. I have one kid in the school system and one kid out of the school system because the middle school is not an option for my family. But to say that the education data didn't even take place to see how it would affect, we have a very large spread out county, how that would affect all the kids in one county to be in one high school together. We don't know how that would affect them education-wise, is also concerning because while we are at the bottom of the barrel, there's only one way to go. I still would love to know what, education-wise, I think they just did it in Mecklenburg County or one of the counties that surround us. How is that affecting children to all be in one school together?
So I would say to some degree, I misspoke on that because we know we can't combine all 3 high schools, particularly the early college. The early college by state law has to be on a separate campus because it is a part of Vance Granville Community College. We have to have students that physically sit on the Vance Granville campus and Warren County Schools campus. So as long as we have the early college, and there are no plans to move or change or do away with the early college, that would be separate. Our plans in terms of New Tech, we're not sure just yet. We are exploring and looking at the benefits from an academic and programming standpoint in terms of either consolidating that school, doing away with it, having 2 schools in a school. So there are a number of options that we have and that we're considering, and would love to hear feedback and input on some of those plans. But we have not made any definitive decisions at this point in terms of consolidation of the high school, particularly given the fact that, again, the early college has to be a separate
And
campus.
that's where my son attends, and again, my kids since grade school have been at a private school because I was not happy with our school district, despite my husband and I both going to school and his mother teaching in our school district. We all opted that it wasn't an option. When the early college came about, we actually were moving to Roanoke Rapids to a different county after living here our whole lives to be in a better school district. And somebody told us about the early college, and we went and met with Ms. Judkins and was very impressed and decided to continue his school throughout there and he's in his 2nd year, and we've been very, very pleased with that school. So that was as a mother who has a child there, my main concern, obviously, because I think that's a wonderful program for our county, trying to push the children here to have a better education than they would otherwise have.
John?
Oh, I think it's somebody. Yeah. This lady right here is next.
So my question was just, what are the goals of the consolidation? Aside from wanting to do it for construction purposes, I know you said that there was no academic research, so what are the other factors or goals or reasons for doing that? What are your expected outcomes?
Operational efficiency is probably at the top of that list. I think having a unified campus, unified setting also. But what is really driving that is the operational efficiency. We do think that we can bring some equity of programming as well by having campuses closer. And that way, for example, you would have a Spanish immersion program that would be accessible to all students and not just one school. We can't afford to hire enough teachers to have a Spanish immersion program at every single school. So it brings about some equity of programming. Again, it brings about some operational efficiency. It brings we believe, I think, a sense of unity, community unity, and that sort of thing. So I think those three factors would be on top of my list.
Okay, and I guess my next question, along with that would be, what is the expected student to teacher ratio with the consolidation?
I don't know that that would necessarily change because we would not, assuming that we don't lose or decrease any students, then you have the same classes, same teachers, you have the same ratio, I think, of students to teachers. We would just simply be upgrading and modernizing the space. If we lose students, which I don't anticipate, but that's a possibility, then we could see class sizes go down and that ratio go down. But I don't anticipate or see that happening.
You need to work out, it'll be all right.
I don't mind at all.
Okay, I come from the perspective that I was doing some substitute teaching prior to COVID, and I stopped, but I got browbeaten into to doing some subbing this year. I've been subbing since August 29th in a first grade classroom at Northside, and I see a different perspective. I am excited about having modern classrooms with updated facilities and because technology is so important now. Like when we went to school, it was a book and a teacher lecturing and you wrote down on a piece of paper. We don't do that anymore. And in terms of the most important thing in a classroom is the teacher. Well, out of 3 first grade classrooms, there's only 1 teacher. The others are subs. But through technology, that 1 teacher teaches the lessons for all 3 classrooms at the same time, so that all 3 classes are getting quality instruction that I couldn't give the kids, that the other sub couldn't give the kids, but you can come behind their instruction and give some follow-up. So I'm excited about something new with technology because I think we're always going to be fighting that teacher quality and teacher quality issue. If you got at least 1 good teacher per grade level and they teach to all on their grade level, at least the kids can get something from that. So I think the money is important.
I think you make a very good point because when we look at the 21st century skills that our students need, things like creativity, like collaboration, communication, these newer spaces would have what we call collaborative spaces where students and teachers are able to work together, to spread out. No longer are students learning in separate classrooms and individual desks, but they now work at pods and in these collaborative spaces. Many of our buildings have old lockers that nobody ever uses that take up a tremendous amount of space. So there's a lot of wasted space, that's old space, old systems that aren't conducive to today's style of teaching and learning and what we expect students to learn.
We have a comment on Facebook Live from Madam J.T. Walker that says, I would like to say that I agree with Mr. Sutton. This type of forward progression is taking place in many places around us. I think it would be beneficial for the county to start thinking more forwardly for the future of our children. And we are broadcasting this on Facebook Live, so if anyone else watching wants to make comments, they can put it in the chat and we'll make sure that it's passed along in the circle.
gonna say when we finish in Miss Act.
I want to say, we understand technology, but we had COVID, and we understood technology in Warren County even better. It wasn't there, and it wasn't in a lot of places. It's ideal to have, we're not against it. Let's just get something clear here. We're not against technology in our schools, but we do need teachers. That's it. On NPR, just this week, it was a whole conversation about little children needs to be socialized. We are not robots, no matter what you think. Okay, we can get on the phone and we can do all these little things and we can text over there anywhere we want to go. But you need social activity. Lockers back in my day was you came to school, you had PE, you put your clothes in something. This is what we're missing here. We need to be more outside. We need to be more outside with science. We need to be, it's all about a building for us. But it's nothing about motion, it's nothing about movement, any of that. Children need to run. They need to have PE. They need to have art classes. How much money do you have for your programming? What is your programming? Just like we didn't know you were building this building, we don't know what that is either. So we don't know a lot of things about our schools that we think our schools should have. But nobody wants to talk to us because they don't like us, because we ask questions and we want answers, and that's insulting to people. That shouldn't happen from your community. Your community shouldn't express themselves about what education is. It should be something that we make up and say it's a technology thing. Education is real, and you have to be able to read. And that should be your first priority.
Let me say to you, one, I agree with you. We very much believe in the arts, so much so from our programming that we've taken some of our money and invested in our first ever district arts director, who's sitting right here with us. So no longer do we just wait and hope that we might hire an arts teacher, a theater teacher, that somebody might want to come to Warren County for a chorus teacher. We have now a district arts person who is helping to coordinate arts in the county and increase the visibility and availability of arts in all of our schools. That is the commitment that we are making. So I agree with you that we need movement, that we need arts. It is the arts and extracurricular activities that there's the reason that many of our students come to school every day, because they want to be engaged in the band, in theater.
Where's our band? Where's the band? I was at the high school this past weekend and they was telling me that we don't have band. Where is band? That's what I'm saying. We're not arguing. We are trying to say we want our schools to be as productive. You got art classes, I agree. I think it's wonderful. If you got people coming in, speaking to the kids, I think it's wonderful. Anything. But we need to know what we got, what do we have in Warren County schools? Because we don't hear that from our community. People are unhappy.
We have a band both here at the high school and at the middle school. We lost our high school band director, and since that time, our middle school band director has been working double time.
Yep, and tired.
To work with, she is tired. I would agree.
She can't get it done.
But she's working with both to help us try to develop and reinvigorate our band program. It's not going to happen overnight. Much of that was interrupted by 18 months of virtual learning as an effect of COVID. We're working through that.
Is there a theater program here?
No.
At the middle school. It's one in the middle school now.
Is it on? Yeah. I really don't need it, I don't think. I don't even know where to start, because I wasn't going to come tonight, because I really didn't think it would make a difference. But last night, I was looking at the Warren record, and my eye hit South Warren Elementary, and those people on the board know I spoke before South Warren closed. And At the time, I was really proud to see the new facility and adding on to all the schools, and I thought that was something really big and special. But I know South Warren's population had become very low, student population. And I was concerned if it closed, we might lose some of those students at the time, and we did lose, I think, about 30. But this particular, looking back into the Warren record, South Warren was in the top 10% of Title I schools across the state. And I just remembered last night as I sat in my living room how happy that made me feel about that school. And then I continued reading the Warren record, and I got to the sheriff's report, and it said that apparently South Warren had been vandalized. And I just hate to see us have, apart from having a new shiny school, 4 schools left to sit vacant. When I retired 10 years ago, but I don't think they've changed that much in the last 10 years and digressed that much if we've been maintaining them. And then, keeping that in mind, I wasn't going to say this, but when I was middle school principal, it was all I could do to get my building maintained. And I really think we need to work, and maybe it's improved again. But I was responsible at the elementary schools for turning in work orders, and that was a big part of my job. And to keep up the facilities that we have is so important if you build a new one, or because middle school really isn't that old. I remember walking into the school and thinking it was gorgeous. I kept purple and turquoise paint under my desk because I've been told it was going to be painted all white and a white roof because that would look technological. As soon as I moved to early college, it was white roof. And to me, it was so beautiful, and it was the purple and the colors. And I remember walking into the high school, and it was a gorgeous facility when it opened. But to maintain what we have, wherever it is so critical, or we're going to be at the same place, and 40 years isn't much time. We say 40 years. To me, 40 years is nothing. And I'm used to living, in an older house and having to maintain it. I had made myself a few notes, and I guess I don't need to read most of them, but the other thing, I remember and I say when we did, but we have something in the paper all the time. When I was principal, if you didn't have your little newsletter in there every week, the superintendent looked at you really hard. And you knew you better have that in the paper. Warren County Schools and it wasn't the community schools person all the time who put it in, the schools did. I think we need to sell our schools. We say we're an F. I can't believe that we have gotten to the point that our schools are Fs. That seems to me an almost impossible grade to get. Now an A is tough. A B, a C, to me is a commendable grade. But when I saw that, yes, we made growth, but growth from where we were. And this last thing we'll say, we talk about technology. I don't think you can replace a good teacher.
No, you can't.
I think COVID showed us that. And having those quality teachers well-trained in the classroom is what's, to me, going to make the difference in these test scores, whether they're in the new building, like you said, or in our older facilities. And that's it.
I want to lift up a couple of points. One, I cannot stress enough the impact that COVID had on our students. And we saw this statewide.
I had it at my house every day. I know.
Yeah, nationally, statewide, and what you probably saw statewide, you can probably multiply it times 2 when you look at the impact that COVID had on our students. And we can see it in the scores. I mean, I'm not stretching, I'm not exaggerating. It is in us, and 18 months being out of school at home did a number on our students. You talk about our plan, you asked me about our plan. One of the things that I'm concerned about, and we have addressed in part of our plan, is our second graders. Students learn to read from kindergarten to 3rd grade. They read to learn for the rest of their lives. Our second graders lost half a year of instruction and learning how to read in kindergarten I'm talking about our third graders now this year. When I was talking about this, our second graders. They lost half of a year in kindergarten and their entire first grade year. And then came back to school as a second grader, having lost a year and a half of learning how to read. How do you think that's going to impact their future trajectory as a student? We focused on those second graders last year, and in the summer made sure we called every single second grade parent, begged some of them, please send your student to summer reading camps. Now, the summer reading camps were for third graders to make sure that they pass their reading exams. We said we're not going to wait to see what our second graders do because we know they are behind. And Ms. Scott, how many second graders did we have in our camps over the summer? 30 second graders in the whole district. 30 parents or families that agreed to send their students to these reading camps. Because we know what we're going to show and see this year in with those third graders this year. Yes, sir.
My question is there a model with regard to closing all of the elementary schools? Is there, and consolidating them into one, is there a model for that in the county of this size? Because I'm not aware of, it probably is, but I'm not aware of it. And my concern is that with regard to children that small or that age being, bused for the period of time that they would have to be bused, some of the kids would have to be bused, depending on where the school is. Would that affect their academic performance? Because I have a daughter at Northside, she loves Northside, and so I went to Marion Ford, and so some of the things that people have said about these schools are, they're really, schools have been around such a long time, and all the other alternatives been exhausted in terms of trying to keep those schools and those communities. And have you studied the impact of elementary school, just one having one? That was my question.
There are models. We even went to visit one. Myself and the board, we went to Jones County, which is a similar size county, similar demographics. They're probably slightly smaller than we are because they have about 1,000 total students. We're at around 1,700. They have consolidated all their students in one building. So they have a K-12 building. And you've got elementary students in one wing, and then a second wing for middle school, another wing for high school. They all use the same cafeteria. They use the same gymnasium and facilities. Now, I'm not saying we're going to that model, but I'm just saying when you ask about are there models around the state, there is one that they just opened up just across the line in Mecklenburg, Virginia, that I think is a K-8, and they went to maybe 2 or 3 schools. So there are several models and configurations of similar sized counties that have done the same thing. So we're not the first. This is a trend that we're seeing across the state when you look at, again, trying to consolidate schools, because it is, and the state sees that it is about dollars and cents. Unless they run a state bond that brings millions and millions of dollars to all counties and districts, then they're going to probably continue to use the lottery funds to try to help districts across the state address their facility needs. The state is aware, the legislature is well aware. You know that, you got a lot of counties that are struggling. 20 tier 1 counties, we're one of them. So how the state is going to get enough money to get to every county and every district to address its capital needs, they're going to have to come off a whole lot more money than what they're doing right now. And they're still giving up quite a bit and using the lottery funds to help do that. And so one of the things one of the reasons why our application scored so high was because of the consolidation. That is the state's priority. Again, I'm not saying that's ours or that it should be. Again, the point that we perhaps should have had this conversation with the community sooner is well taken, and at least share it with you all what our issues are, what our challenges are, what we're seeing. And hey, we don't have but a few options. This is the only option that we see, and this is the one that we're pursuing. So I hear you in saying that conversation should have been had sooner. I get that, but again, our options were few.
Superintendent Sutton, and good evening to everyone in the community. Good evening to our school board members, because we know you have a rough job. Let me just say that, first of all. I've been here 12 years, administrator since 2010. This is the first year I'm not. But I do want to say, Superintendent Sutton, and you being new to the community, but I appreciate your efforts because you did see the need. And I just want to take it from that perspective. There is a need there. The other part, I think, with the previous, I'm going to go back to Dr. Spain, those years. I think the vision tends to change because the vision during that time discussed the fact about school choice. Raise your hand, how many of you are part of that time for school choice? And thank you for being honest about it. And that's how that concept came about, so that there would be different schools, there would be different offerings for our children. And so now it seems like now it's coming back to the consolidated view, which is a little bit different. But I think when we're consolidating and we think about the benefits of the neighborhood school, and so somehow we have to kind of incorporate that in some way so that it can be beneficiary, and also get rid of the Fs. And I'm just gonna speak about the F. Nobody knew about COVID. Let's just be realistic in here. COVID is a phenomenon that has never happened in anybody's lifetime. So I commend the teachers and even me as a principal during that time, and even the parents at home trying to educate their child, and the grandmothers and the aunts. It was unheard of. And to hold the students accountable academically when they were going through it and families getting sick and families dying. I've had parents during my principalship at the time at Northside and their family members just dropping dead. So for a child to focus during that time, and even our teachers went through family members dying. I mean, I became more of what we call a compassionate leader, because that's a whole nother set, when you have to go through that and then talk about academics. So I am encouraged, and I'll shout out my colleague, which was Dr. Carrington, Principal Carrington, when he was on the news. And I don't know if you caught it, but he shared some things that he would like to do to raise student achievement. And I love how the community members are talking about, okay, the building, we definitely need that, but then what's gonna go inside of it, right? How are we gonna move our schools? And that was just so poignant. And thank you for all your efforts, because I can't imagine what you guys are going through. They have more information behind the scenes, I can tell you that, than we have, and they're trying to get it out to us as much as they can. But thank you so much.
Superintendent, we have another Facebook comment from AJ Hargrove. Says, good job, Superintendent. Warren needs change. You can have a quality teacher, but most of what the schools across the country is dealing with, behaviors that are supported by communities, parents, and peers. It goes back to families getting involved at home, setting boundaries, reading with them, doing homework with them, and making sure the appropriate behaviors at home is modeled. And then as for the news story that Dr. Carrington was featured in, that Ms. Dunbar was talking about, that was on Spectrum News 1, if anyone wants to go look that up, about some of the efforts going on to raise scores in our schools.
Thank you. As I walk around, I want you to know that this meeting was scheduled to end at 7:30, so we need to be cognizant of time with your remarks. If you could make them brief, please.
Good evening. I've been hearing everybody talking, and this for your superintendent. I heard about the school bus and the children that's in there, a lot of fightings that happen in the school, the school bus. What do you intend to do with that?
So, as I mentioned earlier, part of the discussion that I want to talk about was the discipline, the fights. What you're hearing, part of that is a lot of the trauma that we're still seeing from students across the state and the country, and it is playing out and manifested itself through the fights, the aggression. Students have experienced loss, disruption to their learning environment. They're taking it out on each other and coming to school to do that. You mentioned earlier about how school used to be, and when you would come and you might get whooped at school, and then again at home. It's different now. It's very different now. I think a whole lot of us would love to see us go back to some of that, but we're losing that, and that's for a lot of reasons. And that ranges from everything from, again, the pandemic and what we're seeing. I think the value of what it means to have an education, parents, younger parents. We're seeing a number of reasons. But I can say to both, to respond to your question, and also about our F schools, and what our plans to address that, learning doesn't start and stop at the schoolhouse door. Learning doesn't start and stop when they walk through this door here at Warren County High School and end when they leave. And so I'm saying to all of you, we need your help. We need parents, we need community, we need everybody engaged. I would love to ask our students and ask the community to say, hey, can we make school a neutral ground? Can this be a neutral place? Where we're not, I know we've got neighborhood gangs, groups, neighborhood streets, whatever you want to call them. Can you all have them call a truce? And say, at least when you're at school, that this is neutral ground? We're searching for answers. We're trying to bring back some of our alternative learning programs. But when I go back and when I came to this district and looked at the facilities where we were putting our students who had been suspended, long-term or what have you, it was in 2 modular units over at Hawkins Education Center. Those units looked so bad that, in my opinion, I wouldn't see in my children, suspended or not, I don't care what they did, I would not have put them in either one of those facilities. If I'm not going to put my children in there, I'm not going to put yours in there. We did away with that facility and that program. But now we are in need of a space and a place to offer to our students who, because it's not my goal to turn them out on the streets and suspend them and let them run up and down the street in the community. That's not an option either.
Question, one more. You say that you have a lot of empty rooms in the buildings, okay? As far as I know, you got smart students and you have the ones that's hands-on. Since you have a lot of those school rooms that's, that's empty, the ones that's hands-on, they're not good in books, why you can't have a tray for them to learn since they're not smart in book?
I could, and you mentioned the empty rooms, but then I also have to have the staff to put in there. So then when it comes to being able to recruit folks to come here that want to work here in Warren County, that want to work in this facility, who have the skills, the knowledge around those trades, CTE or what have you, we're offering bonuses right now, $1,500 bonuses. To anybody that could come and has the certifications, we're looking for folks that can do culinary arts, brick masonry. We'll pay extra for some of that if we can find the people. But we're seeing a shortage, not just a labor shortage across the state and the country, but particularly in the education profession. We can't find the people. In the meantime, we're trying to find some ways to simulate some of that by developing and purchasing computers for a simulation lab, so that if a student wants to learn how to be a welder, a firefighter, a pilot, in aviation, we just put in 2 brand new flight simulators both here at the high school and the middle school. That if a student wants to learn how to fly a plane, they can do that right here in Warren County High School and middle school.
Do you have advertising so people know about it?
We just got it Friday. We're still trying to figure out how to turn it on and learn how to use it. But once we get the class up by next semester, then we will have, I promise you, a full-fledged promotion campaign to make people know and aware that yes, if you want to learn how to be a pilot, you want to learn how to fly, if you want to just explore and see if, hey, this is something I want to learn how to do or not. Because to me, that's what it's about in education, is exposing our students and let them be able to explore different types of careers. And I've told our kids, you can dream as big as you want to and dream about anything you want to be. It's our goal to make sure that we can at least give you some exposure to that career so that we can at least support those dreams.
Well, if you do that, that's how you want the children to come back to Warren County.
That's right. Right. That's right.
We're working on it.
Good point. That's a great point.
And if you want to walk down and see it, we can show it to you before you leave. But we just set that up this past Friday, the simulator.
Me, I want to say something.
Yes, ma'am.
I had 7 kids, and I'm gonna ask you a question. Why is it that a long time ago when we was raising, coming up in school, and we did something, the principal would take us home, and you got to spank it. But now we don't have the understanding with the teachers. They don't call, and then they don't never. I think you also get a place that all the parents could come and sit down and talk and tell how their children are acting. And then that way, maybe they would change, but you know, you can call the school, oh, well, we'll get you on, and then you don't get them. And now children don't want to go to school because of some parents, you know, some teachers. But I'm saying, look like they would do what we did. Well, our parents didn't play, but teachers would call. Like at Marion Boy, I had 2 friends go there, and if they did something, they would call me. I'm up there the next minute, and they didn't have no more problem with them. But now, they don't tell you what the children are doing bad. They do some over here and send them in that room, come on. What you call that little room? ISS. They ain't doing no good, because guess what? They'll call the other and say, what you do? I ain't, you never sit there and look there. So what are you doing? Why don't you call the parents and say, come get them? I had to come get one of my children from this school, 7. I told them if I come and you don't get in trouble, I'm gonna hit you. Before Mr. what the main name was? The one that died, what the name? Mr. Wilson, no, not the last one. No, the little short. Mr. Bell? Stay up there, no line. You know he died. His daughter died. What's his name? Anyway, you know what he said? He said to me, he said, Miss Ernie, the activity said right there. Before he was said it, I hit him. He said, you can't hit him. I said, I had. I said, I bet you anything you won't have no more problem with him. He never had no more problem with him. I hit him right for the principal. He was saying anything. Mr. Wilson, that's who he laughed. He laughed after he said, my God, your sister came yesterday and she slapped her. I said, because we don't play. And if you all would just set up and say, we're going to have a meeting for these children and let the parents come and bring the children with them. Because my grandson said right now, oh God, don't let grandma go. You know what I mean? Because I don't play with them. And I don't want the teachers to abuse mine either. And if we would have that meet with the parents and say, this is what the children are doing. Bring your child with them and let them see you and telling them what they did. But put them in that room while y'all doing, that ain't doing no good but laughing at y'all. Get on Facebook and read. Oh, shucks, he did that. That was fun.
If I can, and I'm going to be totally real with you.
That's right.
I'm going to share with you, for example, a day in the life here, where students, now, first of all, I'm going to say, I'm more than happy, because we have the space to have a room, and we'll call parents.
All right.
And say, hey, I need you to come talk to your student, come get them.
Don't you worry, I'm coming, come in. I'm ready.
And now, when we make that call, when they get that call from Dr. Lewis and Ms. Thomas,
Right.
there's also the expectation that you come.
Don't you worry. Mine,
Okay.
Them 2 grand, no, I come. Hey, ask Merrill. Mary got to come see, look.
Now, all of my principals don't hesitate. They call, especially Dr. Carrington. He'll call a parent in a minute, because he knows half of them, probably 3/4 of them. But I also have parents, for example, I can't tell you how many students come to school every day high on smoking weed.
Yes, and on the buses too.
They walk, I don't know about on the bus,
Yes, I do.
but I know that some that come in the car and come over here any morning and you can smell the weed in their clothes,
See?
in the building. We've called parents. Hey, your child, one said, well, I give him weed before he leaves home,
Jesus,
just to calm him down.
that's crazy.
So this is the parent says that they give students.
Lord Jesus,
I've said to my staff, if you see a student and you don't know what they're on, what they've had, but if they're sitting in your class, glazed over, half asleep, can't even hold their own head up off the desk, call the parent
that's right.
and tell them to come get them.
That's right.
They said, Mr. Sutton, we can do that. You can absolutely do that. Call the parent and ask them to come, because that's a danger to us and to them.
That's right.
If that student falls out, passes out, hit their head, then now we have a medical emergency.
That's right.
I'm not telling you just, I'm not making this up.
Right.
Ask any one of these principals in the building, and they can tell you, and these are things that they see every day. I'm not talking about, oh, this is a once in a,
Jesus.
Mr. Sutton.
Wait 1 second.
Running
Yeah.
out. I
You got
know-
someone over here first.
Wait 1 second, Ms. King.
Oh, okay.
I am not a parent of a student here in the school system, but I am very concerned about the welfare and the well-being of my whole entire community, which is Warren County. This problem is not something that happened overnight. We have an issue here, and it's a systematic issue. Now, I understand the need for new schools or the computer age and all that stuff. I understand the learning curve and all that. Things have changed over years. The question and the problem, the concern that I have is this. Adults have got us here, not students. We have a system that is poison in this county. 40 years, this school has been here. When this school got here, it was the most progressive school in the state. Look at where we are as a county today. It's not the kids that put us here. So now, tomorrow, let's say we wake up tomorrow, we have 3 fancy schools that will educate all the kids in the whole county, but the system hasn't changed. How long will it be before we're here at this crossroad again? What are we gonna do to address that?
Every day, I think we're working to change the culture of Warren County schools, and that's where it starts. We had a convocation at the beginning of the year that was just us, faculty and staff, the adults that work every day at Warren County schools, from bus drivers, child nutrition workers, teachers, administrators, everybody. I talked to them about this very piece, and at the end I asked them, hey, this is hard work. This is going to be hard work. And this work is for everybody. And if this isn't in your heart, if you don't feel it, you have my permission to do what? I asked the staff. I won't even say nothing. What did I say?
Leave, quit, quiet, quit.
No hard feelings. Because this work is for everybody. So I'm talking about the students, but I will say this. We got some really good kids in this building.
Really do.
We got some really good kids in all of these buildings. There are a few that could use some consistent redirection. But we got some good kids. And most of them respond to us in a positive way. Now, some of them, it depends on how you approach them.
That's right.
Many of these kids today, the difference in students today is they expect you to respect them. Respect is two-way. Now, most of us in this room were coming up, respect was one way. You gonna respect me because I'm an adult, because I'm your elder. Students these days, kids these days, if you don't respect them, then they show not showing you any bit of respect either. And that's different. Some of us struggle with that. Let's be honest. Some of us struggle with that. And that's sort of where some of the work begins, in changing the hearts and minds and the culture of the adults and the folks that work in these buildings every day. Some of them can't handle it. We have a few folks that leave every day. Me, for one, personally, I'm okay with that. Because we're holding folks accountable now for what they do or what they should be doing. This young lady over here makes a good point. She's asking questions. I don't mind the questions. And I'm asking staff questions. I'm asking principals questions. I'm asking teachers and counselors questions. We're making our goals and what we're holding people accountable for very clear. And if you're not meeting those, trust me, every person that works in this district can tell you, I'm asking questions. And they are starting to ask questions because they get it. I said early on, the accountability change starts here, because guess who's asking me questions? The board. Arlene and these folks over here, they ask me questions. The community wants answers.
I just want to say something really quick as a native of Warren County. I graduated in 2011, which it wasn't, that long ago, but it's been about 10 years now. And as a mom of 3 girls who, me and my family, we decided that this is going to be our hometown because, if we as a community don't come back and keep it going, it's going to stay broken. And so we decided to stay here and to have a little girl in elementary school and to look back and to see some of my my teachers and principals. It's a really good feeling to see everybody here and still pouring into the community. And I think it's very important that we look ahead. And again, like having my little girl at Northside, and although she's not the pandemic, it really, like just being transparent and honest, it really took a toll on her mentally, socially, like all of that. So we really do have to do the work as a community and not think about the moment. Let's not think about, oh, he has the $30 million for the building and the building is about to go up right now. We have to do the inside work so that when the building goes up, everything that we do in the community will go into the building. And then we don't have to worry about, what's gonna go into the building. But that's just my perspective on it. And I had the opportunity to go over to the middle school with Dr. Carrington last week because he offered me the opportunity to come in and observe because I'm really big with the, going out and giving back into the community. And my assignment in this season is to focus on the girls in the community, the young ladies in the community. It's heavy on my heart to give back, and he allowed me to go in and just observe some things, and it's so much work to be done. And so just, me having the time that I have, I'm willing to go back into the community and give all that I can, but again, it takes all of us. We can't focus on the building, we can't focus on what it looks like, we have to do the work. And we have to market it, and when it comes to the kids in the community, like you said, they're different they're different, and this is coming from me, and I'm young. I feel like I'm still young, but it's coming from me. They're different. I have a 16-year-old sister. Social media is breaking the generation. It's different things we have to do in the community to attract them, so that more parents are here and more parents are voicing their communities. And we can't focus on what it used to look like. And that's just me being honest. We can't focus on that. We have to focus on what's coming. And we have to be willing to adapt to that, especially being from Warren County. I know I wouldn't, in some of the things that these kids do, we wouldn't have done. You know, fights, you know, everybody, you know, disagree. But it's certain things that we wouldn't have done. But again, it takes the community, and in order for us to keep going, we have to come together and not focus on what it used to be. Allow people to come in and make a change, and then we can make the change.
Thank you for that. I could have said it better myself, and it probably came better coming from you than me. Let me say this, and we'll get ready to close. And you'll hear some more information about this. I'm just going to kind of hit this briefly. We got 7 schools. Of those 7 schools, we had 3 schools that designated by the state were chronically low performing. That was Warren County High School, Warren County Middle School, and Northside. They have been designated by the state low performing for now several years. After the pandemic, and this is the last time I'm mentioning the pandemic because I don't believe that it happened, it's real, but I don't use it as an excuse. We had 2 schools that then were added to the state's low performing list. That was Marion Boyd and Vaughn. That gave us a total of 5 schools designated by the state as low performing. We have 7 schools. When you have a majority of your schools that are designated as low performing by the state, then the state also labels or designates your district as a low-performing district. So again, with 5 of 7 schools, we have 5 low-performing schools designated by the state, and we're designated by the state as a low-performing district. We are working with every school and every single principal, putting together individualized plans for each school, and I've asked each principal to begin working with teachers to develop an individualized plan for every student.
What does that mean?
That means that we're looking at every single student, we're tracking their individual performance, we're looking at every single test, we're determining the students that are what we might call bubble students who are right on the borderline and trying to do what we can to push them over. When I say push them over and provide them support, I'm not talking about beating them over the head, because I've heard many students and parents talk about high-stakes testing. If you don't pass this grade test, you don't pass this grade. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how we support our students every single day. When they come to school, have they had a hot breakfast, or are they hungry? Have they gotten a good night's sleep? Do they have that parental and community engagement and support behind them? And with all of those things, we will see our students be successful, we'll see our schools become successful, we'll see the district become successful. It is not going to happen overnight. Yes, ma'am.
I don't want to interrupt you. I know the time is short. This is the last thing I'm going to say, but we have to add to that list. We want to see the community to be successful. And that is
this thing on here? Yes. And that is the issue that we're having. The schools, that's all we have. Like this young lady said, she is going to give back and help out in the school. We will walk out of here tonight. We need to have a list of every community person in here so that we can call on them. And we in rural communities, we can't make a telephone call all the time and think that people are going to respond. We have to think about who are the informal leaders in the community who can make that call or knock on that door to that parent and have a conversation and say, it's important that you show up. Now, what do you need to show up? That's the kind of organizing that we need in this community. Everybody can't just get on the phone, and we know that. The research tells us that. The other thing, we all should go home and just Google
the pros and cons of consolidating rural elementary schools. We should all know that, everybody in this room, and that's what I mean by the importance of community engagement, because if we had known about this earlier, we probably could have put our minds together and figured out how can we save these schools. You know, there are people who live in Warren County, live in houses that were built in 1849, and they're still standing. You know, why can't we fix these schools? And I know the decision is already made, and the state made that decision, which also says the state doesn't care anything about Warren County schools, because they said these are your only options. And these are options that are not research-based. They're not anything but dollars. I mean, it didn't require any kind of community engagement. And this fact that we are here today doing this community engagement, now remember, board and superintendent, we submitted a proposal to do community engagement back in August. This is October. We have not heard anything about that, whether we're going to do that or not. So the idea was pushed and pushed and pushed. Bring the community together. Hear what community people have to say. And I think that the last thing that I'm going to say is agreeing with this young lady right here. It takes the whole community. And we are shut out. We are shut out. And we have resources, and we have skills, we have the will, and that's what we are lacking in our leadership, the will to do something that is bold. And that's what we know from years ago. They made bold moves. They didn't let the state say, well, the only thing you can do is build a new school. We have to be bold, and we have to insist that we, as a community, what purpose is education if it is not to serve the individual, the family, and the community? So that's the last thing that I have to say. And I appreciate all that you all are doing, but just let's be honest. Let's be honest. This issue of community engagement is not new, and I think the board members know that, right? Right?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So let's be honest, this is community engagement.
But it's after the fact.
I own that fact. I apologize for that fact. But we're here, and some may feel like it's too late, and I understand that. But I can also tell you that we brought these people together through an email and a text or a phone call and a regular interview, and we got these people in the room. It doesn't cost, and it cost me zero. It didn't cost me $20,000, which is what you're asking me to do, to pay, to bring people together. I don't need to pay $20,000 to bring people together. I can also say to you, with all due respect, I listen to you. I'm going to ask you to listen to me. We hired consultants to look at these buildings. You did not hear me say that the state told me we have one option. That is not what I said. We've had architects, we've had engineers come and take a look at these buildings. We've got a building that has what's called a cooling tower sitting outside that wastes thousands of dollars. That's an old method of heating and cooling a building from 20 years ago. It wastes a ton of money in water and everything else. It is ineffective. It is obsolete. There's nothing you can do to that. And this is not me saying that, because I don't even know anything about it. Engineers, architects, design folks are telling us it's at a point where you can't keep replacing it. We've replaced it, we put Band-Aids on some of this stuff for 30 years, trying to fix it. If we fix it, and it'll last for a year or two, and then it's out again. It's just like your car. You can't keep putting tires or windows or whatever on a bad car. After at some point, the car is gone, the engine.
I'm not arguing about the need for repairing and building new buildings. That's not what I'm arguing. My
I got your point. I got your point.
And the $20,000 proposal did not include any professional fees. That was for food, for supplies. There were no professional fees in there. You had people who understood a process for engaging small groups of people, interviewing individuals, asking critical questions. What kind of education do we need in Warren County? And what are the facilities that will hold it? And all I'm saying is, let's not pretend that this community engagement question is a new question. And
I want to say
apologize to, you know, my passion, and I apologize to all of you. But we do need to know who's in this room. If we look around, we'll see that half of the people are school people. We don't have any no mass representation of community people in here.
I say to the 40 people or so that are in this room, thank you for coming out tonight.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you for coming
Thank
without us feeding you or giving you anything else.
you. Thank you.
It doesn't cost me anything to have you or ask you all to come. I don't have to pay for food. I don't have to pay for childcare. We got young people sitting in here doing homework that you're holding, so it doesn't cost me anything to ask you all to come and have a conversation. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for taking time out of your evening to be here and discuss what are difficult issues. We have some challenges, but I can tell you, and I know this community, I'm not from here, but I know enough about this community to know that we are up for the challenge. We can do it, but we need your help. We, the school system, we need your help. We'll keep doing this. There'll be other opportunities, particularly as it relates to our plan for improving school performance. Come to our next couple of board meetings. We're sharing individual school improvement plans as well as a district improvement plan, and there's an opportunity for you to provide input into that plan. This is not just Keith Sutton's plan. This is not just the Warren County Schools plan. This is not the board's plan. This is not Ms. Scott, our Chief Academic Officer's plan. This is the community plan on how we will work to improve the trajectory of our schools. So please stay tuned, stay informed. Thank you for coming out. Have a safe trip home and have a good night.